Hey there, chatters. I'm Nat.
And I'm Kat, and welcome to the Crime Chat. I am your forensic femme fatale. Natalie is your true crime-matic connoisseur.
We're just two normal girls who obsess about dark crimes, evil minds, and occasionally the unknown.
And here's your disclaimer, chatters. The following Crime Chat contains adult content and descriptions of violent scenarios today, but we're going to be talking a little beauty in the mix. But your listener discretion is advised.
Yes, you have been warned. And before we get into today's Crime Chat, Kat, what other bowl of jelly are you in right now? I can see it's different.
It's so hard to adjust the sound to a place that you can't, change anything. And the sound has been so bad that I'm actually in my little corner bedroom. I've got the little farm doors shut off in the corner to try and hopefully get my sound a little better.
Yeah. It's okay. No, it's okay. You have a beautiful voice, girl. It's okay.
Well, okay, so last night we had a little get-together with some of the people here, and we were talking about the podcast, and one of the guys was like, do you like the sound of your voice? And I was like, no. I have never liked the sound of my voice. He's like, well,
really?
Does it bother you editing? And I was like, I'm kind of past that now, where, I'm kind of used to it, but, just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to be your worst critic.
Oh, for sure.
It is what it is. It's what God gave you. Work with it, girl.
It's what we got.
And you have a beautiful voice. Did you cut to the part where you're singing?
Well, he's listened, and it was so funny because he played. We were trying to find some music to play whatever in the background. There was a whole group of us that was together, and all I hear is the dun 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 dun, and I was like, oh, "You're playing the podcast."
Put on Phil Spector. Play him Phil Spector when you're singing all the oldies. Yeah. Just show him the sneak peek in the beginning. I got you singing each time. Okay, Kat singing. Gold.
But let's see. So I have managed to binge watch The Unexplained on Netflix with William Shatner. Have you seen that at all?
I know of it. I've never watched an episode, though.
I am fascinated by it. It's got super interesting, different things, a couple of ideas that we could do. They did a whole episode on Jack the Ripper.
Ooh,
too.
Okay.
And it's not all crime and murder and all that stuff. I mean, some of it's supernatural. Some of it's underground cities that have been buried for thousands of years. And, all of a sudden, where did they come from? Now they're here. So it's
cool.
super interesting. And I'm just fascinated by the different types of topics that they cover. So,
on a side note, when I was working in New York, in the facility that I worked at, we did have a program to bring people in that were being discharged from the hospital. Mm-hmm. It could, we work with substance abuse and mental health issues. And I remember this one guy that came in, and the administrator who was the recruiter who would go to the hospitals and kind of figure out who's going to be moving into our facility. He came over to me. He's like, listen, I need your help. Just be really nice to this guy. He literally has zero, he's had zero, other than the nurses and the doctors at the hospital before that, he had zero contact with people on above ground. And I'm like, what does that mean? Then I got his file, and he was a mole person. So he lived
underground.
Yeah, he was so his apparently his story was his family ventured underground when he was I want to say 11.
Yeah.
And when I met him, he was already in his 20s. He lived his entire life, but you could tell he was still 11 in his eyes. He was so innocent. And he really wanted to believe in the good in people. He was just looking at me you guys are going to help me? And he was just, but, and when we asked him to describe where he was living, he really couldn't pinpoint where, but he's we asked him basic questions did you have electricity? Yes, they had electricity. Underground, I guess they may be using maybe a subway that's no longer in use, and they just kind of burrow into those. It's really when you think about it, it's creepy, but there's a whole what is that movie? Oh God,
Blast from the Past.
No, oh God.
Do you remember Blast from the Past though? Brandon Fraser and Alicia Silverstone, where he'd
Yes.
been stuck under, like living underground for 30
Yes.
years because they had built this underground bunker because of the Cold War and
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. No, this is the movie Us from Peel. He did it. It was a scary movie
Oh
where
yes,
the
okay.
family ventures up. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, like in my head, that's what I think, but it really isn't that. Like it's. But
Oh,
yeah.
interesting fact. I also learned that the apartment building that I'm living in
Mm.
temporarily,
Is haunted.
yeah.
Really? Or what are you gonna do? You gonna do some ghost hunting later?
I don't have any equipment with me. Like
It's
how do
Friday
we
night, girl. Get the live cam going on your phone and just walk around.
just walk around? Just...
Yeah. Is there somebody with me right now?
Now I hear weird sounds, but I just figured, that's just the building.
Go buy a Ouija board. Go do it.
No.
That's,
Well, I don't want to invite him out and then have
that's
to tell
true.
him to stay here and not invite him.
And you
Like,
gotta, yeah.
although I probably will do that. Hey, if anybody's been following me, I'm going to kindly ask you to stay here because I'll be back. It's okay. We can be friends. Just not. You just have to stay here. I'll come back.
Right. Oh my God.
But
That's
so that's it.
exciting.
Yeah.
So I know that you've been busy at work. So
Hmm.
I know you probably didn't do the homework that I asked you to do from
I
last
did.
week. Oh,
Proportional.
girl, you are getting an A. You are such a star student. Let me tell you something. Okay. So tell me, how did you like proportional?
No, super interesting. Really interesting, especially like the way he tells the stories. Like, and he breaks it down
Uh-huh.
in almost like layman's terms and
Yeah.
what it really actually means. And I sent the video to my son that's in the Navy
Uh-huh.
and my husband. I'm like, you guys will probably like this.
Yeah.
Super interesting. I mean, basically took out the whole Iranian Navy fleet in a day.
Yeah, and he's really good at video editing. So he knows how to
Yeah.
first of all, he uses segments from Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to use that and actually make it work in what you're talking about, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Today I was driving to work and I'm like, you know what, let me put it on because normally I listen to podcasts or I
Mm-hmm.
listen to the news or whatever when I'm going for my Starbucks. And I'm like, another story of his popped up and it was called Sergeant Reckless.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the war horse during, I guess, the war with North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So like I mean, are you familiar with Sergeant Reckless?
No, but
It's a
War
pretty
Horse, kind of.
okay. There's a movie called War Horse, and I'm pretty
Maybe
sure
that's what it is.
it's a different war in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the same idea.
Okay.
It's just like a
Yeah.
horse that was first of all, this poor animal is probably traumatized. Okay, and like with the explosions and stuff. So apparently in South Korea, there are like these three peaks that they needed to make sure that they had like the higher ground.
Mm-hmm.
So the fat electrician, FYI, is actually a medic from the Marines.
Oh. Okay, so Marines don't have medics.
So what was he?
I don't know, but Marines use Navy corpsmen as their combat medics, and I know that because my son is a corpsman.
So maybe that's what he is. So maybe I'm getting it confused. I know he's a medic, but all of his stories are Marine based. So I'm thinking, I thought,
So as a Navy corpsman, you can be attached to Marine units.
okay,
And my son, he got the qualifications to do that. So to basically be the medic, and all the corpsmen, they always call him Doc.
aw,
They're
that's
like,
cool.
"Hey Doc, come on, Doc, let's go." So, yeah,
That's pretty cool.
so that's got to be if he was a Navy corpsman, like a combat field medic.
right.
Then that's
No, ask your son what you think he is. Like maybe he knows. I don't know. I have no idea. But he's
well. I did
pretty
send him
cool.
the video of the proportional, so
Did he like it?
I haven't heard back from him.
Yeah.
You know how kids are these days.
All right. Well, other than that, that's all I did, really.
Yeah.
I really didn't do anything else.
The other thing I was going to tell you is last week, I think it was, I don't know if it was at work and I was coming back because the where our office is just literally like catty corner across the street. So it's 5-minute walk, right? I come back, I get off the elevator. As I'm walking down the hallway, I see this chick like sprawled out in the middle of the hallway on her phone crying. And I
Oh.
was like, but I'm at the end of the hall. And she was kind of down towards the end of the hall. But as I'm like looking at that, I get a text from one of the guys I'm working with who's staying across the hall from me. And he's like, hey, we might have just had a domestic, I just saw somebody get escorted out. And I was like, I wonder what this is. But because he was saying that apparently like it was the person, my neighbor, like on this side over here.
Right, right.
So for hours, she would somehow, so she got escorted out by 3 policemen.
Right.
We were text messaging between like him and his wife, like, this is happening. Oh, I heard this. Like, literally wanted to go sit out in the hallway with like a bag of popcorn and just like I wanted to take it all in.
Watch
because
it.
she came back like 2 or 3 times.
Right.
After being escorted out by police.
Who was she though? Who
I have no idea. No idea. Probably young or early 20s.
Was she like dating somebody that was working there that she just like couldn't break up with them?
Apparently she had because this is like it's an efficiency, it's like a residence inn, right? It's like an efficiency type of apartment. People have, come for a night or 2.
Right.
But others will stay a little bit more long term. So I think she had just gotten there and all of her stuff was still in the room. And apparently she was trying to like bust the door open and like try and get her stuff out because she was escorted out. And then there was this whole like I said, she came back like 2 or 3 times. And then I heard somebody knocking on the door. It was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, ooh, because right between my room and that room is like the trash chute and recycle bin.
Right.
So I was like, let me go take my trash out and
see what's going on.
See what's going on?
Be a little
there.
nosy.
But it was a guy from the front desk knocking on the door to see if she was in there. And then he, of course, had a key, and she wasn't. There was no other physical altercation that took place.
So, do you think it was a domestic violence, or do you think she just had like a really bad day?
I think it was something domestic because she was talking about like on the phone when I was walking up about something that he did and left her, and it like she was really upset and crying and stuff. And I was, had I not read that text message, I would have asked her, like, are you okay? Like, can I get something for you? Like, can I help? But the reason why she was sprawled out, like literally laying in the floor in the hallway is because she got locked out of the room. So that was just a little interesting. I literally wanted to grab my popcorn, sit out in the hallway.
I know.
Like, what's going on?
Because the drama is over there.
And then we were joking about like only murders in the building.
Yeah.
Like, is there going to be a murder in the building? Stupid, I know.
I'm fascinated that you're staying in a place that's haunted. Like you need to capture something.
Supposedly haunted. Well, downstairs, I guess there's somebody who says that it is. I hear weird noises, but like I said, it sounds like it's just. Although one of the guys has a room, from what he was telling me last night at our little get together. He's got a door. Not all rooms are like mine. They have like the little catty corner, like opening door. Some of them are actual like bedroom doors, right?
And the jelly behind, and the jelly background, right?
And, all the Vaseline behind me. So he said that he sleeps with the doors open, and I do too, because there's like no reason to shut it.
Right.
But he said they close on their own, and I'm like, really?
That would freak me out a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I said it would probably freak me out too if like in the middle of the night you hear them go boom and like come together.
Yeah, that would freak me out. Ooh.
Yeah. We'll see.
It would freak me out, but it doesn't mean that I want to do it. Still want to do it.
Well, no, absolutely. I'm like, I'll come. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to meet my first ghost. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. All right. Well, Kat.
Today's story is not about ghosts, by the way.
No, but it could be. I mean, I'm sure she's haunting somebody.
I'm sure.
Quick question. Is this a crime and cosmetics?
Yes.
Oh.
This is a crime and cosmetics segment.
It is. Okay. Yes. Okay, goody. All right. Well, you asked me to do a history on monarchies.
Mm-hmm. Just in general, what monarchies are about, and
Okay. Well,
what it means.
I pulled some information. I think it applies to your story. I know who you're doing it about. But honestly, other than like movies, I really haven't done like a historical dig on this person. I just know that she has been like, there's been a lot of rumors about her. Probably because
Oh,
she
we'll
was a
get to
strong
those.
woman. Yeah.
We'll get to those rumors.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, this is the information I got. And there's some information here that is interesting, but let's get into it. Okay. So a monarchy is a form of government where a supreme authority and power are vested in a single individual known as a monarch. In a monarchy, the monarch typically inherits their position through succession, meaning that they were born into a royal family or ascended to the throne upon the death or the abdication of the previous monarch.
Abdication?
Yeah, what is that? Is that like being a usurper
Yes.
where like you overthrow it?
Yes. It's like somebody
Okay.
like, and we'll actually get to abdication.
Okay, cool. All right. Monarchies can vary in their structure, but there are two common
Okay.
monarchies. So the first one is an absolute monarchy. This monarch holds unchecked power and authority over the state. They have the final say in all matters of governance and are not bound by the Constitution or legislative body. Historically, absolute monarchs claim divine right, and meaning that they believe that the authority that they hold comes from a higher power, like a deity or God.
So this reminds me of the Romanov dynasty.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of them like
Yeah.
that, though. There's a lot of when you think about that. I think of the Tudors, Henry
Oh yeah.
VIII.
Yeah.
So, number two, the second one, most common one, is a constitutional monarchy. The powers of the monarch are limited by the constitution or legislative bodies, such as a parliament. Countries like the United Kingdom, Japan, Sweden have a constitutional
I
monarchy.
was gonna say United Kingdom,
Interesting.
yeah. Because they
Yeah,
have a prime
interesting.
minister, but then they also have the royal
Right.
family.
Right. I'm sure that they probably went from an absolute to a
Yeah.
constitutional. They probably moved over that way.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they did. So, okay, so monarchies have been important throughout history for several reasons. They often provide a sense of continuity and stability over long periods of time. The hereditary nature of the monarchy can create a sense of tradition, which can be reassuring to citizens during times of change or uncertainty, which I can see. God bless the Queen.
Yes.
They can serve as symbols of national unity or identity. In constitutional monarchies, monarchs act as arbiters of power, serving as the unifying figure above the political fray. So I guess this is a lot like the UK, where the Queen technically can't say anything, but you don't want her eyebrow getting raised in your direction, you know? So
Yes.
everybody kind of like operates or with trying not to technically disappoint her.
Tiptoe.
Right. What's that old saying women used to say, like, he's the head of the family, but I'm the neck. Right?
I've never heard that, but that's true.
My grandmother said that. She's because my grandfather was like such a he was a little bit of a Gestapo, but we used to be like, "Oh, grandma." She's like, "Oh no." She goes, "Don't feel bad for me. I'm the neck. Trust me. He's the head. Let him think that way."
Yeah.
But what trust me, I gave him his ideas. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, "Okay. All right, grandma, you
Then
go,
the
girl."
neck holds the head
And turns it.
and turns it.
So, the constitutional monarchy plays a role in mediating disputes between branches of government and ensuring the stability of the political system, like we were just talking about, parliament. Monarchs often play important ceremonial roles, such as presiding over state functions, ceremonies, and rituals, like the knight Sir Cat.
Lady.
What are they? Lady Cat. Is that what they call them? Lady?
Lady. Yeah.
Dame. You're a dame now.
Yeah.
Okay. They also attract tourism and serve as a symbol of national identity. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. A lot of tourists go to the Buckingham Palace. Definitely. And they also draw visitors and revenue, and they just add to the country's history and traditions. Additionally, monarchs can contribute to a nation's soft power, which we were just talking about being the neck, enhancing its influence and prestige on the world stage. But also, monarchs leave behind a historical legacy that shapes like the identity of the nation. So when you think UK, you think the Queen. There is nobody else. There is the Queen.
Well, there's the king now.
I'm trying to accept that. But honestly, like
It's been
she,
like 2 years. I know.
I
Can you
know,
believe
I
it?
know.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Queen Kate, really am.
We
Anyway,
were just
so
talking about that last night too.
so in their reigns, their accomplishments and their decisions can often influence the course of history and shape the collective memory of a society. Now, despite their significance, they also have a dark side. We all know that.
Yes, they do.
All monarchs have a power known as the royal prerogative, which can include the authority to declare war, appoint government ministers, and issue pardons. So now, in an absolute monarchy where the monarch holds unchecked power, there is a risk of of a tyrant being in control and oppression. Monarchies are often very privileged as royal families, as we know. They have a vast wealth, status, influence by the virtue of their birthright. But monarchies also, occasionally they're not held accountable as people or subject to the rule of law.
Prince
Now,
Andrew.
yeah. This lack of accountability can lead to corruption, nepotism, or favoritism. Prince Andrew. Maintaining a monarchy can be costly for the taxpayers, as royal families often receive public funding for their lifestyles, residencies, and their ceremonial duties. Now, overall, while monarchies have played a significant role throughout history, there have been, like we just discussed, flaws and challenges to them. Now, I try to pinpoint the exact origin of the first monarchy, but it
Ooh.
is hard to do because they
Yeah.
pop up. They pop up independently in
Yeah.
various civilizations around the world and societies, and like you'll have societies that transition from a small tribal community to a complex, cultural hotspot. However, some of the earliest known monarchies, one, ancient Mesopotamia. I actually did a freaking paper on this.
Did you really?
I did, and I totally forgot everything
The
I wrote.
Fertile
But
Crescent.
yeah. So they merged in the region of Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq.
One of my favorite places to vacation.
Is it really? Are you joking? I was going to say. you.
It's been a couple years since I've been there, but
Oh my God.
not much has changed.
Yeah, it's a lot of sand, right?
Sure.
A lot of sand. It's a desert, right?
It's a desert, yes.
Name one good thing. Name one bad thing.
Oh, camel spiders.
Camel spiders. What the hell is that?
They're
What
like
is that
the
even look like?
size of your hand,
Right.
and in the intense summer, they look for shade. So if they're following your shadow, they're just trying to stay in the shade, but it really feels like they're chasing you down.
Are you
They're not
kidding
poisonous, but they're ugly because they have this like weird translucent color to them. Like you can see everything, and they're like can get to be like the size of your hand.
me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, you just freaked me out. I would rather sleep with ghosts than deal with that spider.
Well, I'll have to
Ooh.
circle back to name one good thing about Iraq.
Yes, please. One good thing.
Let me think about that. Let me stew
Okay.
on that a little bit.
Oh my God. All right. Well, the earliest known monarchy in ancient Mesopotamia was actually, they believe, 4000 BCE. That's a long time ago. Now, as you know, Mesopotamia is also known as one of the earliest civilizations to develop really high-tech skills like counting and astrology, and I mean, it's a really, when you think about it, they're pretty amazing, but they're also very dark too, because they also did like cannibalism and things like that. But anyway, all right. So these early kings were depicted as divine or semi-divine figures, serving between God and people. Now, also another early monarchy is, of course, ancient Egypt. Another civilization that developed early forms of monarchy. The pharaoh or king was considered a godlike or absolute authority over the land.
Yeah.
The earliest Egyptian dynasties, such as the First Dynasty, emerged around 3100 BC. Still a long time ago. Okay. So let me ask you a question. what's the difference between a monarchy and a dynasty? I I I got those two. All right.
I don't know. Tell us,
I didn't
Nat.
know either. I was like, what is that? What is that? All right. So, a monarchy is an individual who holds supreme authority and power within the monarchy. Monarchs may rule for life or for a fixed term,
Mm-hmm.
and their authority can be inherited through succession
Mm-hmm.
or obtained through other means, such as an election or appointment.
That reminds me, I've been wanting to watch Succession. I've heard it was
I've heard that
really
was good
good.
too. Yeah, I heard that was good too. You know what? That's got to go on my to-do list because I keep on saying, "Oh, that is a good," and I just never.
Well, we will put it on our to-do list. And side
Yes.
note, last night I was asked, "Hey, did you ever finish watching Once Upon a Time?" And I was like, "No." So people are listening. Thank you, Veronica.
Okay, so a dynasty refers to a succession of rulers from the same family or lineage
Okay.
who rule over a particular region or state. So dynasties are characterized by passing of power and authority from one generation to the next within the same family.
Mm-hmm.
Dynasties can endure for centuries.
Mm-hmm. Well, the
So,
Romanov dynasty.
right, right.
300
So
years, I
now,
think it was.
yeah, and you know what? If you think about it, UK, the Queen, her ancestry actually traces back to them. So
Yeah.
maybe they may have just changed the name because it was like so. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's another crime chat. Okay. So monarchs can belong to dynasties,
Mm-hmm.
but not all monarchs are a part of a dynasty. For example, if they are the first ruler of a newly established monarchy, obviously
Mm-hmm.
they're not part of a dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Not all dynasties are associated with monarchies, as some ruling families may govern as a part of a different system of government, such as a republic or an oligarch. The first dynasty we know of is how do you say that?
Chi?
Is that the Qi?
Yeah. Chi? XIA. Chi.
Yeah, Qi, right? If you say so, that's what Cat knows. Cat knows. Okay. All right. First dynasty we know of is the Qi dynasty, and technically it's the first dynasty in Chinese history, and it is believed to have ruled from 2070 BCE to 1600 BCE. These monarchies may vary, but all shared common characteristics such as succession, centralized
Mm-hmm.
power, and
Mm-hmm.
divine and semi divine legitimacy. So, God save the Queen, Queen Kate. Let's
God
go.
save
And
the
you know what? I don't
Queen.
want anything to happen to the king. I love King Charles. I'm just saying that, you know what? Retire, and let's enjoy
Well,
Queen
they can't.
Kate.
I don't think they can. I mean, unless
They
they abdicate
can't?
themselves, they'd have
Yeah.
to abdicate themselves. But
All
if they
right.
passed it on, I mean, if you think about Elizabeth's husband, I mean, he
Philip.
was Philip. Yeah, he was sick for a while,
Yeah.
but it didn't change over until he actually died.
Mm.
So I don't know.
I don't know.
I
All
don't
right.
know.
Well, that's my intro for your story. So I hope that shed some light
Yes.
on monarchies. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we are gonna talk about Russia and Catherine the Great, as we know her. So in today's Crime and Cosmetics segment, we're going to talk about Catherine the Second, also known as Catherine the Great. We'll go over this Prussian-born Russian Tsarina, also called a Tsarista, which is a female version of a Tsar.
Okay.
Her claim to fame, her beauty routine, her lovers, and likely how she had her husband murdered after only him being on the throne for 6 months.
Oops.
Scandalous. Catherine the Great, as we know her today, she was born Princess Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst in 1729, a principality in modern-day central Germany. She hailed from an impoverished Prussian family whose bargaining power stemmed from its noble connections, and thanks to these ties, she soon found herself engaged to the heir of the Russian throne, Peter III. He was the nephew of the reigning Empress, Elizabeth, and grandson to another renowned Romanov, Peter the Great. Now, upon arriving in St. Petersburg in 1744, Sophie converted to Eastern Orthodoxy, adopted a Russian name, and began learning to speak the language. The following year, the 16-year-old wed her betrothed, officially becoming Grand Duchess Catherine Alexeyevna. However, this was no fairy tale. This was no happily ever after. This was an ill-fated marriage from the start. Peter was considered boorish and totally immature. Their marriage wasn't consummated for years.
Wow.
Due to Peter's mental immaturity, supposedly. I mean, she was like 16.
Maybe he didn't like women.
No, he did.
Okay.
Catherine was well educated. She was a scholar and a lover of European culture. These differences between Peter's immaturity and Catherine's scholarly seeking education led to both parties seeking intimacy elsewhere.
Ooh.
After Peter took a mistress, Catherine became involved with other prominent court figures. She soon became popular with several powerful political groups that opposed her husband. Catherine had her first sexual relationship with Sergei Saltykov, as her marriage to Peter had not yet been consummated, a fact that raised many questions, both at the time and in the century since, about the paternity of their son, the future Paul I. Catherine herself suggested in her memoirs that Paul was actually the child of her first lover, Sergei Saltykov.
Yeah.
Keep a nugget in that.
Okay.
We got nuggies going on.
Okay.
We're going to circle back to Paul.
Royal nuggies this time.
Royal nuggies. In Catherine's own words, quote, "Had it been my fate to have a husband whom I could love, I would have never changed towards him," end quote.
I agree.
No greater scorn than a woman's wrath.
Right,
In 1759, Catherine became pregnant with their second child. The first one was Paul, Anna, who only lived 14 months.
Aww.
Due to various rumors of Catherine's promiscuity, Peter was led to believe that he was not the child's biological father and is known to have proclaimed, quote, "Go to the devil," end quote, when Catherine angrily dismissed his accusations. She therefore spent much of this time alone in her private boudoir to hide away from Peter's abrasive personality. Peter, however, proved to not only be a poor life partner, but a threat to his wife's well-being, particularly following his ascension to the Russian throne upon his Aunt Elizabeth's death in January of 1762. From the beginning of her husband's reign, Peter III, her position was one of isolation and humiliation. It was obvious to her that Peter's hostility had evolved into a determination to end their marriage and remove her from public life.
Wow.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, Peter's aunt, the one that had just passed away, before she died, she actually blackmailed Peter and Catherine to produce an heir. Peter and Catherine both had been involved in a 1749 Russian military plot to crown Peter, together with Catherine the Great, in Elizabeth's stead. And as a result of this plot, Elizabeth likely wanted to deny both Catherine and Peter any rights to the Russian throne, and instead Elizabeth allowed Catherine to have sexual lovers only after a new legal heir was born. And Catherine and Peter's son Paul, he did survive this, and he appeared to be a very strong candidate. But after the death of Empress Elizabeth on January 5th, 1762, Peter did succeed the throne as Emperor Peter III, and Catherine became the Empress Consort. The imperial couple moved to the new Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. The emperor's eccentricities and policies included his great admiration for the Prussian king Frederick II, alienating the same groups that Catherine had cultivated as allies. So Catherine's trying to work and get all these allies kind of on their side. She's doing the neck thing.
Right.
So,
Okay.
But Peter started doing the opposite. So in July of 1762, barely 6 months after becoming the emperor, Peter lingered in the Oranienbaum with his Holstein-born courtiers and relatives, while Catherine lived in another palace nearby. They weren't even living together. On the night of July 8th, 1762, Catherine was given the news that one of her co-conspirators had been arrested by her estranged husband. So she was pissed.
Yeah.
Immediately the next day, tensions arose. July 9th, 1762, there was a coup. Hey, that rhymed. This was 6 months after Peter ascended to the throne, and Catherine, with the help of her lover, Gregory Orloff, they led 14,000 soldiers on horseback to Winter Palace and unseated her husband.
Wow. Okay. That's
That's
a badass move. That's a gangster move.
That's one hell of a neck.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that same morning, Peter III was promptly placed in jail and forced to sign a statement of abdication.
Mm-hmm.
Signing his, I hear thee, hear ye, no longer am Emperor of Russia.
Right. The men must have been pissed.
8 days later,
Oh,
the dethroned Tsar, Peter III, was dead.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Killed under still uncertain circumstances, alternatively sometimes characterized as murder, sometimes characterized as an inadvertent result of a drunken brawl, and sometimes considered a total accident. However, it's very possible that Peter died at the hands of Alexei Orlov, who is Catherine's lover Gregory Orlov's younger brother. The official cause of death, however, was advertised as apoplexy stroke and hemorrhoidal colic. Now, hemorrhoidal colic is not actually a notable disease, and it's now known as a diagnosis given to somebody who was assassinated. Hemorrhoidal colic.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Interesting.
Obviously, colic is a condition for a fussy baby. Hemorrhoidal is related to the hemorrhoids.
He got killed. Absolutely. He got taken out.
Yeah. Now, there is no evidence conclusively linking Catherine to her husband's death.
Atta
But as
girl.
many... Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
As many historians have pointed out, his demise absolutely benefited her immensely. Superficially, she reigned on behalf of Peter's supposed heir. So Peter dies. Paul, he's only 8 years old at the time, can't take over until he becomes of age. So she's essentially ruling until her son becomes of age.
Yeah.
But she had no intention of yielding the throne to her son once he got old enough. Now, with Peter out of the picture, Catherine was able to consolidate power from a position of strength.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know what I'm getting? The vision of who I'm getting right now? I'm getting Cersei vibes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely Cersei vibes. And to put it bluntly, you said it before, Catherine, she was a usurper.
Oh.
The bloodless shift in power was so easily accomplished that Frederick the Great of Prussia later observed, quote, Peter allowed himself to be dethroned like a child being sent to bed, end quote.
Okay, but like
he didn't put up a fight.
Yeah, and I
but then he ended up getting killed anyway.
Right, which kind of like leads back to when she got married. He was like a man child. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Well, Catherine was crowned at the Assumption Cathedral in Moscow on September 22nd, 1762. Her coronation marks the creation of one of the main treasures of the Romanov dynasty, the Imperial Crown of Russia. Have you seen it?
No.
The crown?
No. Is it gorgeous?
Well, yes, and I'm going to put some pictures on Patreon.
Okay.
This was designed by Swiss-French court diamond jeweler Jeremy Pouze. The crown contains 75 pearls, 4,936 Indian diamonds forming a laurel and oak leaves, the symbols of power and strength, and it is surmounted by a 398.62 carat ruby spinel that previously belonged to the Empress Elizabeth, and a diamond cross. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, how do you walk in a room with that without taking like the scene, like just stealing the show?
Well, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
The crown was produced in a record 2 months for Catherine, and it weighed 5 pounds. Put 5 pounds on your head.
That's a lot of diamonds right there.
It is.
Yeah, wow.
From 1762, the Great Imperial Crown was the actual coronation crown of all the Romanov emperors until the monarchy's abolition in 1917, and it is one of the main treasures of the Romanov dynasty, now on display at the Moscow Kremlin Armory Museum.
Ooh.
As the ruler of Russia from 1762 to 1796, girl, 34 years?
Atta girl. Yeah.
Catherine championed a lot of things. Get ready for this list. Ready? Enlightenment ideals, expanded her empire's borders, spearheaded judicial and administrative reforms, dabbled in vaccinations, curated a vast art collection that formed the foundation of one of the world's greatest museums, exchanged correspondence with such philosophers as Voltaire and Denis Diderot, penned operas and children's fairy tales, founded the country's first state-funded school for women, drafted her own legal code, and promoted a national system of education.
Wow. Catherine
Get
the
it, girl.
Great. She's the great.
Yeah.
Truly.
But perhaps the most impressively is that she was virtually penniless Prussian princess. Catherine wielded the power for over 3 decades, despite the fact she had absolutely no claim to the crown whatsoever.
Wow. Impressive.
She took it.
Yeah.
She took it. Catherine's appearance was also very important to her, especially when she was in the Tsarista.
Yeah.
By the middle of the 18th century, a woman's natural complexion became very fashionable. For whiteness of the face, skin was washed with steamed milk, cucumber brine, and a decoction of corn flour, and ointments based on egg white and oils from flouring wheat were used to clean the skin.
Oof, the first part sounded like something you can order at Starbucks, but okay.
Well, Catherine recalled that in her youth she suffered from acne and pimples on her face, but she was helped by the imperial medic. She recalled, quote, "He took out of his pocket a small vial of talc oil and told me to put 1 drop into a cup of water and wash my face with it from time to time. For example, weekly. Indeed, the talc oil cleansed my skin, and in 10 days I could show my face," end quote. I mean, she went to Russia when she was like 15, 16 years old, so
Right.
at the peak of the acne.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Grabowski, the cabinet secretary of Catherine the Great, wrote that during her morning toilet, quote, "the empress rubbed her face with ice," end quote. And then an Irish woman, Martha Wilmot, who visited Russia in the beginning of the 19th century, she was visiting Catherine, wrote, quote, "Every morning they would bring me a plate of ice as thick as glass, and I, like a real Russian, rub my cheeks, from which, as I am assured, will be good complexion of the skin," end quote. You're going to sit there rubbing ice on your face. I mean, you're taking all that morning puffiness out.
She's so ahead of her time.
Get those cool cucumbers over the eyes.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
In the time of Catherine the Great, Russia had 4 powder factories and 5 rouge factories. In addition, foreign cosmetics were widely on sale. A jar of rouge was expensive for the time. It was 80 kopecks. This compares to the fact that 10 to 12 kopecks was the average a Russian could eat a hearty meal at a tavern.
Wow.
So I did a little math and conversion.
Okay, cool.
The old Russian ruble, which is no longer in existence, was 100 kopecks. Mm-hmm. So it's like 100 pennies to the dollar, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But the old Russian ruble was replaced by the Russian ruble on January 1st, 1998. 1 current Russian ruble was equivalent to 1,000 old Russian rubles. With the time money converter, basically the rouge, that was 80 kopecks, would be equivalent to about $72 today.
Wow.
I did my homework on that.
Yeah. So it's expensive stuff. I mean, $72 for blush. Let's see, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Gotta be some great blush.
Well, I mean, people would spend that in like their skincare routine and stuff. They would
$72 for blush.
Yeah.
I could see
but
that
for blush.
For blush. I could see that for foundation, but blush, girl. It's got to be some great ass blush. Catherine,
Well, it's because they whitened their face completely out and then added the rouge to their cheeks and their lips.
Right. Wow.
But to the general public, Catherine was perhaps best known for conducting a string of salacious love affairs. While the Empress did have her fair share of lovers, 12 to be exact, she was not the sexual deviant as popular people would think. In the Book of the Romanovs, by Simon Sebag Montefiore, he characterizes Catherine as, quote, an obsessional serial monogamist who adored sharing card games in her cozy apartments and discussing her literary and artistic interest with her beloved, end quote. Yeah. She was a true romantic at heart.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it. I'll get into it. Many tales of her sexuality can, in fact, be attributed to her critics, who hoped that it would weaken her hold on power.
Yeah.
Army officer Gregory Potemkin, was arguably the greatest love of Catherine's life. Though her relationship with the one I mentioned before, Gregory Orloff, technically was her longest relationship. She met Potemkin on the day of her 1762 coup, overthrowing her husband with her first lover, Gregory Orloff, And that was so they met in 1762, but she didn't become lovers with Potemkin until 1774. So they stayed friends for a while. Now, they had a united share of appreciation of learning, larger-than-life theatrics, and Simon Montefiore, the one that wrote the Romanovs, said they were, quote, human furnaces who demanded an endless supply of praise, love, and attention in private and glory and power in public, end quote.
Sounds like a real narcissist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Letters exchanged between Catherine and Gregory Potemkin, I don't know how to say it, Potemkin, testify to the ardent nature of their relationship. In one passage, Catherine declared, quote, I love you so much. You are so handsome, clever, jovial, and funny. When I am with you, I attach no importance to the world. I have never been so happy, end quote.
Aww.
Such all-consuming passion proved unsustainable because their romantic partnership faded only after 2 years. They did remain on very good terms, and that Potemkin actually continued to wield enormous political influence in acting as a quote-unquote Tsar in all but name.
Oh.
Basically saying he did her doings. He did her dealings and stuff.
Right.
And in fact, he allegedly selected candidate lovers for her. Like, he knew her so well. And we're not in this relationship anymore, but I will find you somebody that has the physical beauty and the mental faculties that will hold your interest, because I know you, Catherine the Great, Catherine the Second.
You're blowing my mind, because I had no idea she was so, men respected her in that way, because that, you only hear that stuff when it comes to like a king, where women are fawning and just getting in line for him, and you know, there's no shame in that. I'm just kind of like impressed with her right now, because this was way before her time. Wow.
Yeah. So Potemkin brought her lovers such as Alexander Dmitriev Menemov and Nicholas Alexander Suk. Some of these men loved Catherine in return, but she always showed generosity towards them even after the affair had ended. One of her lovers, I think it's Peter, Pyotr, Zavdosky, received 50,000 rubles and a pension of 5,000 rubles and 4,000 peasants in Ukraine after she dismissed him in 1777. So she's like, it's like her peace offering. Like, I'm not interested in you anymore, but here's some money and some peasants.
I'm retiring you. Yeah.
The last of her lovers, Platon Zubov, was 40 years her junior.
Wow.
Her sexual independence led to many of the legends about her, as you can imagine. Upon Potemkin's death in 1791, Catherine reportedly spent days overwhelmed by tears and despair, because even though they only had a sexual relationship for 2 years, they were very close.
Yeah.
Always in search of romantic intimacy, Catherine once admitted, quote, the trouble is that my heart is loath to remain even 1 hour without love, end quote. Circling back to her eldest son, Paul. Now, she claimed, officially, that he was the son of Peter III. But in her memoirs, Catherine implied very strongly that Paul was the son of Sergei Saltykov, her first lover, and that he was a biological father, although she did later retract this. So it's really hard. Like, in her memoirs, she wrote one thing. Even in the Romanovs, the book that covered the 300 years of their ruling, it wasn't even conclusive in there either. Nonetheless, Catherine would eventually leave the final version of her memoirs that she wrote to her son, the future Paul I, in which she did explain why Paul had been Peter's son. So maybe, I mean, it's possible that he was the son of Sergei, especially if they didn't consummate. I mean, think about it. When did they consummate their marriage? When did she get pregnant? Right. Like, if you were married for 2 years and you never had sex, but oh, poof, you're pregnant, you know. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Exactly. Catherine wanted to become empress herself and did not want another heir to the throne, so she said Paul was not Peter's son originally. Okay. She used Saltykov to make Peter jealous, and although she didn't actually desire to have a child with Saltykov, it was just kind of like a manipulation thing. Yeah. Like, I'm going to use one against the other, you know, the love triangle. Right. Catherine's life and reign included many personal successes, but they ended in 2 failures. Her Swedish cousin, once removed, his name was King Gustav IV. Adolf. King Gustav IV Adolf. Sure. So he visited her in September of 1796. The Empress's intention was that her granddaughter, Alexandra, would marry her cousin, King Gustav, and Alexandra would become the Queen of Sweden. There was a ball that was given at the imperial court on September 11th of 1796 when the engagement was supposed to have been announced. However, Gustav felt pressured to accept Alexandra because she would not convert to Lutheranism. And although he was pleased at what he saw, he was attracted to her, he refused to appear at the ball, and he left immediately for Stockholm.
Oh.
So he said, I'm out.
Yeah.
The frustration affected Catherine's health, and although she recovered well enough to begin a plan a ceremony which would establish her favorite grandson, Alexander, so his granddaughter is Alexandra. She has a grandson, Alexander. She was going to name Alexander, her grandson, as her heir, superseding her son, Paul.
That's fucked up.
But she died before the announcement could be made, just after 2 months after the engagement ball. So the engagement ball happened, or didn't happen, and then she was planning on naming Alexander her heir.
Right.
But she died.
Wow. I wonder what Paul thinks about that.
Well, we'll get to Paul.
Oh, okay.
We're going to get to Paul. On November 16th, 1796, Catherine rose early in the morning and had her usual morning coffee. Soon settling down to work on papers, she told her lady's maid that she had slept better than she had in a very long time. Sometime after 9 a.m., she was found on the floor with her face purplish, her pulse was weak, her breathing was shallow and labored. The court physician diagnosed her with a stroke, and despite attempts to revive her, she fell into a coma. She was given last rites and died the following evening around 9:45 p.m. An autopsy performed confirmed that it was actually a stroke. Later, several rumors circulated regarding the cause and manner of Catherine's death. The most famous of these rumors is that she died after having sex with her horse.
So stupid.
This rumor was widely circulated by satirical British and French publications at the time of her death.
All men.
Basically saying, oh, Russia loves having sex, like bestiality. They loved it.
Right, and they're all men though, and they're just like this is.
Of course.
You know what? Like that's the thing. Like I guess back then, especially even today, the one real low blow you can make to a woman is of her dignity, and that it just yeah. I don't believe it.
But in the end, the Empress was laid to rest with a gold crown on her head, clothed in a silver brocade dress. Brocade dress? Brocade? Brocade? Brocade. On November 25th, 1796, the coffin, richly decorated in gold fabric, was placed atop an elevated platform at the Grand Galleys Chamber of Mourning. The Empress's body laid in state for 6 weeks.
What?
That's a long time.
Yeah, she's rotting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
In a large and magnificently decorated room in the castle, which kept it lit day and night, especially in the sun.
She probably smelled like horse manure.
Catherine was stretched on a ceremonial bed surrounded by the coats of arms of all the towns in Russia. Her face was left uncovered, and her fair hand rested on the bed. All the ladies, some of whom took turns to watch the body, allegedly would go and kiss her hand, or at least appear to go and kiss her hand. How would you like to do that?
No.
She's been dead 6 weeks and you're kissing her hand?
Ooh.
Okay, so Paul I, now, he did succeed as Emperor of Russia in 1796. Of course, this was after being overshadowed by his mother for most of his life, even though she did try to keep Paul isolated and away from Winter Palace. Like, she hired a tutor. She had this whole thing where he was never there. She kept him away the whole time. Now, when Paul turned 18, he and his advisor believed that he was the rightful Tsar of Russia, and he was the only son of Peter. His advisor had taught him that the rule of women endangered good leadership, which was why he was so interested in gaining the throne. It soon became even clearer that to Catherine that Paul wanted power, including his separate court. There apparently was talk of having both Paul and his mother co-rule Russia, but Catherine narrowly avoided it. She's like, oh, hell no. A fierce rivalry began between them, as Catherine knew she could never truly trust her son, and his claim to her seat was actually superior. Like, he had the right.
Right. But
at the time.
he had mommy issues, too.
Yeah, of course. Yes, he did. He sure did. Paul was often jealous of the favors that Catherine would show upon her lovers. For instance, the Empress gave one of her favorite lovers 50,000 rubles on her birthday, while Paul received a cheap watch. And he got jealous of that.
Oh my God.
Paul's early isolation from his mother created a distance between them that later events would reinforce. She never considered inviting him to share her power in governing Russia. Once Paul's son Alexander was born, it appeared that Catherine had found a more suitable heir. Although the young Alexander eventually would agree to his grandmother's wishes, he remained respectful to his father's position as immediate successor to the Russian throne.
Yeah.
Paul made many enemies in his very short rule. For instance, his attempts to force the nobility to adopt a code of chivalry alienated many of his trusted advisors. The emperor also discovered corruption in the Russian treasury, and he also revoked Catherine's decree allowing corporal punishment of the free classes and directed reforms that resulted in greater rights for peasantry and provided for better treatment of serfs on agricultural estates. Many of his policies greatly annoyed nobility, people who had the up-diddy-doing, like, oh, no. Mm-hmm. He made enemies along the way. He was pissing people off. As a result, Paul was attacked in his bedroom, with attempts of forcing Paul to abdicate his rule. Paul resisted, but he was stabbed, strangled, and stomped to death at St. Michael's Castle in 1801.
Oh.
5 years. He was enrolled for 5 years. That's it.
Wow. Mommy wasn't there to protect you.
I don't know that she would.
Yeah.
She'd be like, sucks for you. With all this said, Catherine II's legacy as Catherine the Great endures to this day. She was exceptionally well educated, brought many of her enlightened ideas to fruition during her very long reign. While flirtatious and charming, the Empress still possessed a very sharp mind. She did not know how to conduct secular conversations, claiming that the Parisians would hardly have liked her because she didn't know how to show, quote-unquote, subtlety of feelings. Like, she was very blunt and just straight to the point.
Yeah.
Catherine shone in conversations concerning issues of philosophy, history, and politics. Visitors to the imperial court all commented on Catherine's grace and kindness and the dignity that she presented herself with. She sought to bring Russia into the modern world and largely succeeded in doing that. Now, she has inspired many, many books, paintings, films, operas. But two of the most famous today is the 2019 TV series Catherine the Great, which is the renowned actress Dame Helen Mirren.
Love it.
She plays Catherine. And the popular TV series The Great, where Catherine is played by American actress Elle Fanning.
Love that one too.
And that is our Crime and Cosmetics Catherine the Great story.
That was amazing. Thank you for doing that. And you know what? I feel bad for Paul because I feel like he didn't get his mommy's love.
No.
I don't know. I think he may have been, I don't know. Like, do you think he was the son of Peter?
Or Sergei Sotnikov?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's possible. Like I was saying before, like, if they haven't consummated their marriage, they hadn't had sex, and it's been 3 years, but she shows up pregnant, 1 + 1 is 2 kind of thing. I didn't have a chance to really dig into that, like, as far as the timeline, especially since she changed her mind. She said, told Peter that Paul wasn't his, only to play with Sergei's emotions, but, like, at the same time, I don't want a child with you, Sergei. So,
and that was,
this is actually Peter's son.
Might have been a manipulation on her part, but she wasn't. It feels like she wasn't a victim of her circumstances ever. And even when she was pregnant, she kind of used the birthright or the father, who the father was, as a power play. Like, yeah, you're my husband, but that doesn't mean that this is your son. Oh, wait, this is your son. Oh, wait, it's not your son. Like, I think, like, everything, I think she was not ever a victim. She wasn't a victim. She was Catherine the motherfucking Great.
That's why she's Catherine the Great. The research that I did for this, there was so much more, obviously, they could have gone into, but, like, I was just like, wow, this chick.
Was she attractive? Like, when you see pictures of her, what did she look like?
It's hard to see in paintings. Yeah. I've got a lot of paintings that I found of other, artist renditions of her. I mean, okay, but she looked like a 18th century royalty. Yeah, Romanov. I mean.
Yeah. Oh, my God. And, of course,
I've got a picture of Peter. I've got a picture of Paul. I've got a picture of both Gregorys, Potomkin and Gregory Orloff. Got a couple of other of her lovers.
Okay.
And a picture of the crown.
Oh, I got to see that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace, Catherine the Great. You will always be
always
remembered.
Be great.
Yes, and we most certainly do not. You know what? We do not. I do not believe any rumor of bestiality at all. So it's okay. We get it. Oh, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, because we don't want to leave you hanging, chatters, for more information about this case, please check out After That Crime Chat, only available on Patreon.
And don't forget to follow us, Crime Chat with Nat and Kat, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X. See what we got going on.
Crime Chat with Nat and Kat. When you become a VIP chatter to our Patreon, you'll have bonus episodes, behind the scenes, bloopers, and free merch.
You'll have full videos and bloopers when there's not operator error involved.
It's okay.
It's totally my fault, guys, last week. Sorry.
It's all right. We'll add some more bloopers. I have plenty of bloopers from this episode, so do not worry.
And be sure to check out our next episode. You're not going to want to miss it.
Nope. So we'll see you on the next Crime Chat.